So good evening and welcome everyone. Welcome to the Richmond Art Gallery's Artist Salon. My name is Kathy Tycholis. I'm the gallery's public programs and education coordinator. Today I'll be joined by our guest artist, J Peachy. As today's session is going to be so focused on how we live and work on this land, I encourage you all to learn more about the location you live on. I would also encourage you, if you would like to know more about sort of the Musqueam area and Richmond in particular, we were really fortunate to have Elder Cecilia Point record a short video for us as a welcome to the gallery. So you can see it both at the gallery on site, but it is also on the Richmond Art Gallery's YouTube channel. And it's a great, very quick little history lesson of what this land used to look like. So I do recommend you having a look at that. The link is in our chat right now. And I'm really pleased to have J Peachy with us here today. He's here to talk about his work in the field of community engaged art, which I think kind of bridges that world of public art, performance, and teaching as well. Before we get to that, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping and introduction to the overall program. So for those of you who are new to the Artist Salon, it is a monthly series of talks on the last Wednesday of each month. It offers a mix of professional development tips for artists and inspiration for artists, all to make sure that you keep on making your work and growing your art practice. And in relation to resources for artists that this program tries to bring out to the community, I also manage the Artist Salon Facebook group. This is a private group. It's really only for artists in the Lower Mainland, because its posts more relevant to Lower Mainland, like open calls, any professional development workshops or opportunities, local arts events, as well as a space for all of you out there to connect with one another if you wanted others to know about your own art exhibitions, openings, events, that type of thing. So again, that would be listed on the Richmond Art Gallery website on the Artist Salon pages. I'm really happy to introduce J Peachy as my guest artist. JP was recommended to me by our friends at Richmond Public Art, as they're working with him on a different project in Richmond, and he is working on a few different projects in Richmond right now. So I thought it would be great to hear from an artist who actually is working on site right now. As you can see, he's outdoors on location. And so we could hear a little bit about the process in developing the projects, hearing how he got started in this type of work. And I thought it would be a great inspiration to our usual audience of artists, because as I learned just from recently meeting with him, that a big aspect of how he got started was really finding a ways to make a living wage during the pandemic, and how we had to change. All of us really had to change and pivot. I hate that word, but pivot during the pandemic. You know, particularly in the art field, we really had to reconsider the ways we work. And also following up kind of on the discussion from last month's salon with the curator, you know, where we really talked about how artists shouldn't be necessarily relying on galleries as their only venue. I do think the fields of public art and community engagement in particular just really broaden the scope of ways artists can work, whether it's working, you know, with the community, you know, in more of a, you know, not necessarily so focused on money, but it also will bring you those opportunities where you can actually make a living as a working artist. So I think, you know, touching on all those elements of public art, working with community, working with different age groups, also working with teaching in some aspect of your art practice is a really sort of interesting way for artists to get more involved and really finding out more about what it is that they want to connect with, which is, I think, something J Peachy has really done. So I think he'll be a really great inspiration for you all out there tonight. But he's also available for your questions. If you're just getting started in this field and, you know, just wanted some basic tips, that's what tonight is for. So please feel free to keep throwing in your questions in the chat or the Q&A. So I will now fade into the background to monitor the questions. So before I go, I just want to extend a very big welcome to our guest, J Peachy, and I will let you take it away.
Great. Thank you, Kathy and Melanie, for hosting this salon. I think these are really great opportunities for, you know, for everyone to connect and find what everyone's doing within the creative community. And so I'm super excited to share what I know. And yes, feel free to jump in with any questions. So I'm going to share a screen with a PowerPoint I created, and then I may flip between some links online. So bear with me as I kind of stick handle this. Just to follow on with Kathy's territorial acknowledgement. Yes, I'm a visitor, a guest here on Coast Salish territories. My parents are Philippine descent, and they come from Pangasinan, the place of the salt. So I come from fish people, and my connection into the land here and through the indigenous people has been through the fish work on the activism side and a lot of the community engagement. This image is from a street painting I did for the community of Musqueam that were rising up to protect their lands, known as Sesnam, which is also known as the Marpole Middens. And yeah, it was just kind of one way that my art could be of service to the community. And I'm very grateful for the friends at Musqueam that I've gotten to know. In particular, Rose Point, who is an elder that was very dear to me and always kind of came out to different events. And she is one of the first Musqueam people I know. And yeah, and through that connection, was able to meet Cecilia Point and many of the members of the Point family, Melanie Point, Mary Point, and they've just been super generous to me as an individual, as an artist. So I want to acknowledge the territory, but also the people that I've come to meet on this land here, what is known as Richmond. My creative journey, I'm what's known in the art industry as a contemporary outsider artist. I'm not formally trained. Contemporary outsider artist could be a street artist, self-taught, those who have come through the non-traditional means into the creative world. And how that came for me was actually part of my own kind of personal life experience and the post-capitalist world. I was in a corporate career and had a kind of a major health meltdown. And how I came into creativity was when I was institutionalized in a mental health facility. I was introduced to an art therapy class. And from there, it became a point of healing and feeling. And really, that's the start of my creative journey. So from that point on, which was 2006, it was kind of an awakening of my spirit. And the artistic and the creative journey has kind of been a response to, my own life, as well as to the things that I feel and see in the world. And so that was kind of my way to find my own kind of personal path. And so it's been quite a interesting, magical, painful journey. But I'm here today in the space that I want to be in through the creative world. So it's not always about gallery paintings on a wall. The artistic process is healing, and if you have the ability to share it and find places that will support you, that is the wealth to me. So that's the context for how I came into what is now my art career. This is a painting I did called Salmon Hills, and there's a lot of fish and narrative in my work, and it ties kind of a bit of my ancestry as well as indigenous people on the land here. And so I created this painting, and I donated it to the Vancouver General Hospital because the materials were supplied to me through other means. And it kind of ties into my own mental health history, as well as the journey of a salmon and how over time immemorial, it kind of keeps on going. So it's a bit of a reflective piece. But the only way you can see this piece is actually if you get admitted to Vancouver General Hospital psychiatric emergency. So the VGH Foundation knew a bit of my story and found that was that was a perfect place to put it. So I did know someone who came across my painting and messaged me that they saw it, and it lifted them up. And so, you know, for me, as Kathy said, it's not always about the money. You do need to sustain yourself, but some of these things, these stories, refuel yourselves as you go through your own kind of artistic journey. You may have seen this van, the wild salmon van, as I call it. It is my creative vehicle, and it's a community canvas of sorts. So since 2012, I've brought this van out for community events, and kids get to paint on it. So it was my way of creating a creative space, and you know, bringing the art into a space and changing it and transforming it. And so this was at a salmon festival in Port Moody, and since 2012, I brought the salmon van into about 200 events, and so it's still going. It's a 1994 Dodge Ram van. It's also practical because I bring my community pop-up arts engagement within the van, and also bring musical equipment and support other artists as I do festivals and events. So there's me and characters Will Salmon serenading the children as they're painting the van, and that salmon head was kind of an artifact from the pro salmon anti-fish farm movement. And so one of the activists brought it out, and then I asked them, hey, what are you doing with that? Can I use it? And so it's kind of an artifact from that people's movement that I've kind of carried on and created a character with. Throughout my creative journey, I was introduced to community radio. So campus and community radio is funded by public funds through either the University Student Union or community funding, and it is a platform for individuals who want to start their own radio show or news program or connect with community. So at around 2009, when I was kind of going through my like post-apocalyptic kind of spiritual journey, I approached CGSF Radio about creating an arts and mental health program called Sound Therapy Radio. And we started that in 2009. And that whole platform was a way for me to interact with other artists, find out about their journey, share ideas, and just be surrounded by the creativity and the creative process. So you can see Sound Therapy Radio on Facebook, as well as on the internet. There's some archived episodes, but I think we ran for about 4 years, every Tuesday. And there's another mental health advocate that took over after I kind of released the reins. But the whole point was I was searching for platforms to, you know, connect with other artists, express freely what, you know, we thought and felt. And so community radio is one platform I suggest if you have the time to be able to participate in a community. And it was a really supportive community. And in Canada, we are very blessed to be able to have these public institutions that we can essentially utilize to kind of express ourselves. So in the Lower Mainland, there's CGSF Radio, there's CITR on UBC campus. There's CFRO, Co-op Radio in Vancouver, and in the Fraser Valley, it's Civil's UFE's community radio. And so I did a number of projects around art and advocacy through CGSF.
J Peachy, can I just interrupt briefly?
Yes.
So if someone did want to get into radio, how much experience do they need? Like, did you have much of a background doing that sort of thing?
No, they train you. So if you have the desire and the willingness to learn, this is funded through the CRTC, so as well as the university student body, but they are meant to be a community engaged platform. So I don't know if anyone's gone to UBC and has heard of Nardwar. So yeah, Nardwar was incubated under CITR radio, and so Nardwar has been able to create a career for himself with his like university weirdness and carry it through his adulthood and create a cult-like following. So this is campus and community radio, existed before the internet and what we have now as podcast platforms and social media. And it still has its place because campus and community radio has, a public benefit mandate. So you can't just spew like alt-right rhetoric or lies. You're accountable to CRTC standards and the community. So it is important to have these institutions because we know what the power of misinformation does to people. It exploits people. It's inauthentic and it's damaging to society. So yeah, I advocate for these spaces. They're hard to do because you've got to put your own time and effort into it. But the power is the authenticity, and then also being around a community of folks that believe in the public narrative and parallels, I guess, in the US would be National Public Radio, Public Broadcasting Service. There's a great community campus station in Santa Monica called KCRW. They are left-leaning and community oriented, but these are the values that appeal to me. And having gone through my kind of corporate world and knowing that wasn't like really spiritually sustainable for me, knowing that these other spaces exist through this journey, I really value them and what they do in the world. So yeah, if you really have the passion for expressing your voice, community and campus radio is a great space because you get taught radio skills. You could host your own show, or you can pair up with an existing show and know the ropes. But Christy Clark, she started at CGSF radio. There are a lot of folks that have in their journey have gone through community-based media, especially in Canada. We have this infrastructure that's designed within the Canadian political system, and so your taxpayer dollars are funding it. And so if you have the opportunity, you could utilize it. And just to jump off on that, Shaw used to have a community channel, Shaw Cable 4. And so as a jump off from my community radio, I got into Shaw Community Access Television. And just like learning radio, I was able to learn television, broadcast television, and had like through a community group, we had 9 time slots on Shaw Cable 4. So we learned video editing, broadcasting, multi-channel switching. So a lot of these technologies that are now widely available, I had the benefit of learning through Shaw Community Access. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist anymore, but I guess my point is that if you really want to get community engaged arts, find those community media spaces to kind of challenge what you know and what you think and open your eyes to how others walk on the world. And yeah, it was very eye-opening for me.
Thank you.
So continue on the presentation here. The fisheye lens. Oops, I just added a slide. I kind of use these narratives just kind of in a playful way, but the fisheye lens is, you know, taps into, you know, the double meaning of my ancestry, but also for those in photography, you know, the wide view, but also the underwater view of the world. So sometimes in my fish character, I go into that mindset and that mind's eye to see how the world is. And so that becomes a kind of a creative playground for me. And I found through working with an indigenous community that is part of their DNA. They are known as the salmon people. Salmon is the largest biomass transfer from the ocean to the land here on the West Coast. The Fraser River, as it's known, and as it passes through here in Richmond, is a keystone species. So swimming alongside indigenous people and those connected to the land has opened my eyes. And so that is part of the creative journey or the migration. And, you know, it's formed a lot of how I see my creative work and how it participates within the community. And really shifting that, that knowledge that I've been able to witness or been gifted. I have a sense of responsibility to kind of pass it on to next generation. So that's manifested itself in children's and youth programming, collaborating with Red Fox Healthy Living Society, which is a BIPOC youth centered nonprofit that focuses on building career paths for youth in childcare and development. And the art cart is kind of one of these assets that I was being able to acquire through Gallery Gachet, which is a mental health art collective. And it's been a new platform to do engagements, and building on the outsider art kind of theme. There's also a double meaning in that not only, you know, is my art career outside the traditional system. I prefer to be outside. I prefer to be in nature, and so I try and bring the art outside or the creative engagement outside. And the energy and creativity of youth, there's this great energy and reciprocity that happens when you can create a space for this imagination. So I mentioned Gallery Gachet. It's a mental health focused arts collective that's based on the downtown east side, and it was a large part of my I guess knowledge base for understanding the art world and also understanding creative expression, healing modalities, alternative communities and expressions. And they received funding to build this art cart many years ago, and it had been sitting in storage for a number of years. And I kept on asking them, hey, what are you doing in the cart? What are you doing in the cart? And the collective is so generous because I saw the work I was doing within the community that they gifted me the use of it. And so I'm its custodian, and it supports a lot of the pop-up programming that is kind of re-emerging now. I just want to back up. In 2012, I started Broad Inlet Fish Fest. It was kind of my way to support the salmon, give those Indigenous voices that I knew a place to express their values within the city of Port Moody. So in 2012, we did the first one, and this first time they had ever done a territorial acknowledgement in the park there in Port Moody. So a lot of the work, and I know Kathy, you mentioned that kind of struggling for Indigenous acknowledgement, and these are new things because we weren't taught these things in school to do, right? So it's an interesting time for creative people or those who want to work within the community or eco arts to step up and find out like how they can support Indigenous communities or become aware of reconciliation or decolonization. And so my art journey was my contribution. And so Broad Inlet Fish Fest and the community that's been created around it has been very uplifting for me. I've learned a lot, made a lot of unique connections, and got to understand the world of Indigenous people and their struggle. And so again, I extend my gratitude for Indigenous people for allowing us to be here and to do this work. And so as a matter of reciprocity, my creative work is the gifts that I have and the privileges that I can offer. I'm gonna shift a little bit to pancakes and puppetry. This is the salmon, is a theme that's kind of woven through a lot of my work. And really the connection of food and story and youth engagement is kind of encapsulated in this pop-up programming concept called Pancakes and Puppetry. So during the pandemic, we did a lot of this stuff virtually. You can see there that is a Cooper's Hawk in Pancake. So it's kind of a little kind of comedic response to the starving artist, right? So if a starving artist could eat all their canvases, they would never be starving. So I kind of went with that theme and extended it into pancakes. So the creation of pancakes and imagination and kind of youth and childlike curiosity is encapsulated in pancakes and puppetry. So I've done this at the Mission Farmers Market, Hastings Community Center. We did a pancakes and puppetry roadshow where we had puppetry performers, musical guests, in addition to a pancake breakfast. So it's kind of like pancakes next level and community engagement next level. So I just want to, I don't know if you can see that. I got a little wood crafted puppet here. This is a hummingbird. So part of my multidisciplinary art is, trying different things and reaching the art and creativity and stories in a different way. So this is kind of a gastrointestinal expression, so to speak. So you can see Pancakes and Puppetry on Instagram and also on Facebook. I don't know if there's any other questions. We're going to shift the presentation a little bit kind of to where my art is now into Richmond. I'm going to pop in the chat here. Great. So yeah, the pandemic, it was a very challenging time for many people, and it still is. There's a lot of sad things that happened during that time, and I admit it was very difficult for me to shift and kind of continue my creative career. And thankfully, I had individuals who was able to support me with other opportunities. But it did challenge me in a number of ways. It challenged me to think about, what's an essential service and where is my role as an artist is in that narrative. How could my creative mindset, pivot and shift and be adaptable? Because as an outsider artist, I position, myself as kind of non-mainstream. So how could I challenge that angst and frustration into something, productive? So it kind of recommitted my desire to work outside and work within the child and youth environment, because I have a story and my own journey and my own experience and my own creative life. I think that's a value And, you know, there isn't a curriculum designed specifically around, you know, my type of journey, but you know, not every individual has the opportunity to go to art school or do the things needed to submit a portfolio and or have that financial means. So, and the connection to the land and eco arts is kind of where my focus has really been. And I'm super grateful for the city of Richmond and School District 38 because last year they put out an artist call for artists to participate within the school system. And it was the first time actually that the school and the city of Richmond worked together. So there's some words here, harvest and salvage. You know, as artists, we're always like, you know, acquiring things and think that, oh, this is neat, I could use this for something. Or so, you know, that whole mentality of kind of reusing and giving something another life is of value to me. And you know, being outside and wood and nature is something that's really healing for me. So the combination of all these things plus the Richmond opportunity has created this kind of next kind of phase in my creative journey. So in I believe in March last year we won the Cook Elementary artist in residency, and if you go to cookwhimsicalgarden.ca, there's a number of artists that were part of this project at the beginning, and we were all at different phases of dealing with the pandemic art career would look like, and so I had the benefit of calling all these folks and say, hey, you want to do something, you want to submit, you know, and be part of this, and thankfully, you know, each in their own capacity was able to contribute. And so we've been doing a number of workshops that are kind of outdoor and eco arts related within Cook Elementary since last year. But a large part of that project was the build of the Four Directions Canoe Garden. And I'm going to bring this yeah, I'm going to show you the harvest and salvage art as we speak here. So this is Cook Whimsical Garden .ca. And if you go to the blog section of the website, you'll see this canoe garden. And the post says planted from Four Directions. So I partner with my buddy Pat Calla, who's a Métis artist and amazing woodcrafter. And he built a 40-foot York boat Métis replica at Fort Langley. And I mentioned to him about this project we have in Richmond. And we wanted to acknowledge that Richmond is a migration space, not only for the animals, the salmon that come through, the snow geese that fly in from Russia, but all the people who have come to settle on these lands, on these indigenous territories. And so this canoe garden has 4 canoe fronts from 4 directions with 4 different styles. So it's in the shape of a compass. So the northern canoe style is a birch bark northern indigenous style. There's the west coast is a west facing is like a coastal canoe. The York boat faces east, and then the southern canoe is a banka boat style, like an outrigger, like similar to a Polynesian outrigger, or the Philippine outrigger is called a banka boat, which would have a bamboo outriggers to support it. But the construction of this is the kind of harvest and salvage story. So I'm just going down here. Pollock Park, through my connection with the Urban Bounty, Richmond Food Security Society, had a number of red cedar that they had just fallen, or they'd fallen quite a while ago. And we'd asked if we could use it for this project. And thankfully, the City of Richmond Parks Department said, yeah, you're welcome to use it as long as you're serving community with it. And so I have some friends that are talented and creative and support the work that we're doing, including Dan Coulter, who has his own mill, and he milled the wood for us into 2x6 lengths. And Pat and his buddy Sean assembled it in their shop. And then we installed it on site here at Cook Elementary. So Cook Elementary is on Cook between Garden City and I guess number 3 on Cook Road. And we turned it into a garden space. And so the kids helped sand it. We planted last year, and it is one of those things where your imagination and community wealth can create something that money can't really buy. So that is one pretty dramatic and timingly amazing harvest and salvage project. But just the same, like this hummingbird was wood that was gifted to me. So you can start with the smallest things and make something really magical. I can continue on with those other aspects of harvest and salvage, but this is fish leather, which is salmon leather that I've learned to make. So again, that's taking a waste product and giving it a story. So as I mentioned, salmon's very important to me. Yeah, there's a million projects that I could see with harvest and salvage theme. And there's also creative spaces. So for example, at Richmond Senior Secondary, the outdoor learning environment, which I'm going to shift really quickly into their Instagram. I'm also the resident artist at Cook or at Richmond Senior Secondary as they're building their outdoor learning environment. So can you see this Instagram? I want to make sure.
Yes, we can see it.
So there's been a lot of stuff happening. We just had an Earth Day event on the 22nd. But if you go down Moffat Road, it's the backside of Richmond Senior Secondary. So it's just around the corner from the Cultural Center. There's this outdoor space that is the outdoor learning environment. So this platform on the front here, we also built with salvaged wood from a woman who had donated it from Maple Ridge. So my friend Dan also milled those for us, and we created this stage here. But this whole outdoor space is a canvas. And similarly at Cook Elementary, that is also a canvas. So this is a space, harvest and salvage. These logs here on the outside were harvested from the City of Richmond log bin that had accumulated through the atmospheric river. And it just creates a unique vibe to that space. It's more organic and living versus kind of a static colonial lawn. So those are pretty bold examples, but find out what you really want to create and do, and kind of try and do a workaround to the capitalist system and see how your imagination, your charm, your just express what you're looking for to do, and share with others that may have skills that can be put to work in community and build community wealth. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, those kind of themes have tied themselves together in Richmond. And And I think the city and the school districts see the spaces that they have, but they don't have the capacity to kind of stitch all these things together. So I think as artists, it's our this is kind of our avenue where we can make change, and we can work within the system and the wealth that already exists in the community. And the one last project I wanted to bring forward here is the Garden City Birdhouse, which is the space behind me. So this is a collaboration with the Garden City Conservation Society. Sharon McGogan, who is the president of the society, owns this house next door. And she also has a wild bird sanctuary, an official adopted bird sanctuary. So we've been collaborating on our space engagement to bring forward conservation values through artistry. And so one of the things that has really manifested itself is the Earth Day event here at Richmond Senior Secondary. So working with the school, we were able to secure a grant to build British Columbia's first pocket forest. And you can see some kids here in this 1 meter depth of hole. This is a test pocket forest. And the whole outside, or half of the outside of the Richmond Senior Outdoor Learning Environment will be rewilded into a high density forest based on this Japanese growing technique called the Miyawaki forest. And so we just celebrated the start of this project, and Trees Canada awarded our collective team $10,000 to build these not only tree environments, but these learning environments. So this has all kind of manifested itself because of the connections between the city and the school district, and then the momentum and the energies from the community. So the artistry is really the imagination and the possibilities, and taking the common vision and kind of bringing it to next level. So you can see a lot of the posts there. Eugene, who's the teacher there, is just super awesome on Instagram. But one thing I want to just highlight is these tables that we've been building. They look like picnic tables, but we call them learner tables because we want to unlearn some things that maybe aren't helpful from our past, and relearn things. So the kids have been wood burning different images on these tables, and they will formulate the outdoor learning environment as they'll be installed in the outdoor learning space. So you can see those on the Instagram, and see all the magic that the kids have been creating through eco arts and outdoor learning. And on each of the tables, we have a territorial acknowledgement on the side of them, because we want that knowledge to be brought to the table. So we bring narrative, and we bring visual arts. We intervene into kind of regular everyday, and I think that's what outsider artists do. And yeah, I think that's about it from my side of my formal presentations.
Well, thanks so much, J Peachy. It's great to see the visuals too of what these spaces look like. One question I had, just as someone that used to work in a school and knowing sort of, what sort of, when you go into like an existing space, like whether it's a schoolyard, whether it's a park or a garden, what sort of restrictions or parameters do you have to work with as an artist? I'm sure each one would be very different, but in general, what do you find kind of sort of what are the parameters, and what do you have to come with when you say approach a school or approach a space in order to get your project started?
Yeah, I think the first thing is find an ally within a school that you may personally know, or that understands your work, and just offer that, hey, I do this, do you think would this be a value in your school? So go with what the strength that you have, tap into the personal network of folks. Everyone knows someone that's a teacher, or maybe is retired, and they might know someone, because the teachers or the schools have parent advisory councils, and a lot of the opportunities outside of these two schools that I brought the other artists in was from Parents Advisory Council. So you could pitch something creative, within a local school. It might not be a huge installation like this, which requires many stakeholders to be involved. And they trust us because, I brought in professionals to do, the builds, and we kind of know what's reasonable and acceptable. But yeah, whatever your creative skill, and if you feel that, just put yourself in your own childhood space and oh, if someone taught me this, right? So be that person that brings that knowledge. And the kids, they love it. They're just wild at every little thing, right? Like sandpaper. They're like, no way, that's amazing. Yeah, it's made out of sand. No way, it's sand and paper, right? Or like you just never know. There's something that's probably super mundane in your creative life that's just fascinating for these kids. And a lot of them might just be on the phones, and it's kind of cool to see an artist real in person. Like you don't really know how you're gonna affect them until you're actually there in the space. So yeah, if you want to pitch more formal programs, go to Art Starts, which is a great website to support arts-based education. There's kind of arts as a topic of learning, but there's also, infusing arts into the education system, which this outdoor learning environment has been, right? The pandemic has kind of created this window. They wanted kids to be outside. And so these two projects, were about getting kids outside, getting their hands dirty, so there sometimes the social narrative or the public narrative creates opportunity for your artistry to and just don't be shy. Find someone who really believes in you, and ask them a million questions. What if I did this? Who do I talk to? And yeah, be bold. There's no idea that's wasted if you just have a conversation with someone. It doesn't cost anything.
And I know you've also worked with different types of audiences. Like you're working with the school kids at the schools, but I know you've also worked with, say, like seniors, and you've worked with different types of audiences. How do you sort of structure or plan your project accordingly based on either, I guess, the space or the people you're going to be working with?
Yeah, a large part of my practice right now is, transferring knowledge from elders to the children, right? So it's kind of this linkage in between. And there's a lot of desire for this. There's a lot of elders that have, they might be lonely. So you're doing, you're kind of reawakening that spirit in them, and connecting the kids to the knowledge that they know. So the trick about that is to be organized and really to know what you can deliver realistically, right? So how it's manifesting itself is in this puppetry. This elder friend of mine, Elise Roberts from the Treasure Box Puppet Theater, she would just do tons of puppet shows when she was a young mom, and she eventually worked within the community centers. But she just has all these stories and knowledge, and she just emanates them just by talking to her. And so my creative mind is like, oh, how can we transform this knowledge into something unique for the children, right? And so in that essence, I'm not like the frontline artist. I'm more like the organizer. I'm the production crew. I do the heavy lifting. And so Elise did come to the Garden City or the Richmond Secondary Earth Day with a tree puppet that she gifted me. It's this talking tree, and it was just sitting in this basement. And so I've got this talking tree that it's just kind of really rad because it's kind of weird looking, and you get to push a narrative through a talking tree, right? So yeah, I think that's that's my way, is like find a way in your creative skill to connect, you know, with these audiences, because then you're actually, you know, you're dealing with the same story, but it's two audiences you wouldn't think would relate to each other, but they're connected by story.
Great, thank you. Well, I don't know if there's any questions from the audience at all in terms of either any of the projects or anything else. Please throw those up in the chat. I just see more people going on about what incredible projects you have, and thank you so much. They'll go check out the garden at Cook Elementary.
Hi, Leanne. I think Leanne's a teacher from Richmond Senior.
Ah, great. And I know just from my going through the names, I see a lot of Richmond residents, so I'm sure, you know, they can go check out some of these projects as well. Julie wrote, it's wonderful for children to have the opportunity to engage in art and outdoor education. It looks like you are making a real impact. It sounds like you're making connections with so many. It's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you to Richmond and the people who have been super, you know, open to hearing my ideas.
So how do you balance all these projects at the same time?
Well, I don't have children, right? So I have this privilege of time capacity. But you know, I've got a calendar, and I also make time for outside, you know, for myself, because it can be overwhelming. And you know, as artists, we have a million ideas. We want to do them all, right? So, you know, yeah, plan them out. I try and plan projects at least, you know, 6 to 8 weeks. So if there's a community engagement, like, oh, can you come like Friday? It's like, no, I got, you know, I want to do a good job. So I try and commit to this 6 to 8 week window of planning. And because yeah, I've kind of said yes to too many things before, and then, you know, you just kind of limp into things. So and for me now, there's this natural rhythm with nature and, you know, connecting Richmond and its cycles. So know the cycles of the groups that you want to work with and plug into them early as you can. So right now we're thinking of next year's, you know, school programming, and, you know, hopefully the pandemic, you know, has really kind of faded off from, you know, the restrictions now, so we can plan differently. But yeah, I've had to really plan and be able to accommodate shifts, like, you know, so build that into your framework, like to, you know, how to pivot, right? So have all these plans to be able to still continue the work, even if it's just, you know, 10% of what your dream was, but it's still moving. So go with that fish analogy, just keep swimming on through.
Right. Comment from B, I walk daily through Cook and I love the project. Thank you for sharing your journey and your art. What an incredible session. And I know B is an illustrator who's been doing illustrations in the parks. So maybe you two can connect.
Oh, that's great.
Something together. And related to Cook, what type of plants will be planted at Cook Elementary?
Yeah, so right now, if you know the indigenous 4-direction canoe color, or the 4-direction colors, I've got, those are all native pollinator plants planted in the colors of the 4 directions. So the north canoe has it's a white flower. It's an aster. The east facing has goldenrod. The south has I think a Douglas aster, and then oh yeah, north is alpine aster, and then the west facing has a blue colored flower. Yeah, it's meant to be 4 colors, 4 directions, and then there's another space for more pollinator plants. So I've given the kids some pollinator seeds to pollinate that. So that was intended to all be a pollinator garden as opposed to the food garden, which is at Cook Elementary. But we had some awesome bees come last year, just amazing to see. You know, it was just, I'm in love with bees, and just because they're so beneficial to, you know, we need bees, we need trees, yes, and we need all these things that sustain life. So this is my reciprocity through creativity, and I'd love B to connect with you and, you know, document as that that canoe garden grows. And I'd like that to be the community space for artists to connect in with the school, right? So I can help manage that with the school. And, you know, my term officially ends this June, but that garden's staying there and not taken home with me. So I'd love for it to be, you know, a place for the community to care for it and help continue to tell its story and encourage children to know where they came from, know where they're going.
That's great, and that's so important, I think, for them, and for both the elementary school and the secondary school that you work with. I think that's so great that you can have that. Well, I see we're hitting the 8 o'clock mark, so I think we'll, because I don't see any other questions. And B, I will definitely connect you with JP, and maybe you two can do some drawing in the park together or at the gardens. And also, if there's any other artists out there, definitely drop me a line if you did want to get connected or find out more about some of these projects. I did share some of the websites as well as the Instagram accounts in the chat, so you can also check out more there. But in the video, we will definitely include all those links.
This is a birdhouse. This is a needle felting that Yolanda did with the at Cook Elementary. So
cool. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for all the great projects you're doing, and everyone's basically putting in the chat. Thank you so much. It was very inspiring. It was very inspiring to hear, and I'm sure we're gonna, in our next walks and through the neighborhood, we're going to go have a look at some of your projects. And as the gardens start to come up, the spring starts to happen. It'd be great to see all that. Thanks again, J Peachy, and thank you everyone out there for joining in. And hopefully we'll see you next month. Take care, everybody. Bye.
take care.